My name is Anne, I'm a grandparent and I live in Brighton. I'm a young grandparent and I have 8 grandchildren, and there are so many positive aspects to looking after them, picking them up from school, listening to them prattle on and telling you what's going on, going to the playground with them, meeting their friends, learning new dances. My eldest granddaughter insists on teaching me new dances and comment on what I wear and what the latest trends are and what I should be watching on television. And "oh grandma, you don't know" is usually a constant refrain. I think grandparents helping childcare is invaluable to some families because childcare is very expensive. Grandparents look after the grandchildren free. They don't charge anything usually. I don't provide childcare for any of my grandchildren now, but I did for 2 years. I see my grandchildren just as a grandma. I started looking after the children for my daughter when she had her 5th child, and he was 6 months old. And I continued to do that right up until he was 2. It started off quite a formal arrangement, my childminding. But invariably it became less formal and I was called upon to stay an extra hour here and pick up an extra child there. And I'm afraid I got quite resentful. I can see that there could be a lot of problems for a grandparent looking after grandchildren because they stop being a grandparent and they become a carer. It seems to me very odd that grandparents looking after grandchildren, their parents don't qualify for any benefits at all. But if the grandparent was looking after somebody else's child, not a grandchild, then they would qualify for some benefit. Since I've stopped providing childcare full-time for my daughter's family, I've been able to relax a lot more with my grandchildren. I can go round and I can just be silly with them now. I feel that I've got to discipline them at all. I haven't got to watch what they eat. I haven't got to make sure they're clean and tidy. I can just have a good time with them. And my life seems to have got back to some normality, which it didn't seem to have before. I'm very lucky because my daughter's childcare arrangements now have changed, so she doesn't need a grandparent to look after her children, but I understand it's not the same for all families. Some families cannot afford to pay for childcare, so they have to rely on grandparents looking after their children while they go out to earn a living. You may not be aware, but if you've got any queries, and I had 1 or 2 myself, and you can phone the Grandparents Association for advice. It's probably one of the least known aspects of the Grandparent Association. Most people know that we look after people who are trying to get contact with their grandchildren and are full-time carers for their grandchildren. The Grandparents Association also helps by providing childcare agreements. The childcare agreements are set out in a form, and they set out the hours that the grandparent agrees to look after the children. They set out about who's going to buy what, nappies, extra milk, whatever's run out. It makes a more formal arrangement of the whole childcare arrangement. My role with the Grandparents Association has changed now because I've become a trustee. In my role as a trustee, I've been able to see a wider aspect of grandparenting and relations with grandparents and grandchildren. And I can see that a lot of grandparents have had the same problems or queries that I've had, and everybody thinks it's only them. But once you speak to the Grandparents Association, you realise that there are common themes, and it's all put in perspective. The Grandparents Association produce various fact sheets and literature which are extremely useful. Being a grandparent to me is the most wonderful thing that happened to me. It's just pure being able to give and receive love, and it's really a most important part of my life. For many grandparents, the childcare arrangements really do work. There are some where it doesn't work, and for those people, the Grandparents Association is vital in giving advice and drawing up the childcare agreements and just generally being supportive. Even though I don't provide childcare now, my love and affection for my grandchildren and theirs for me hasn't diminished. Things have changed so much since my grandparents' day. My grandparents we used to visit them every Sunday and have high tea, and we sat on a chair and didn't move, and they didn't know what went on in my family. But these days, grandparents are involved with their families and they're welcomed into their families, which is a wonderful thing.